out of nowhere, Mav, we go from just, all talks about Jimmy Garoppolo and no real word from the Jimmy camp or what's going on with Jimmy's health or anything like that, to Jimmy Garoppolo's underneath the knife. He's actually having shoulder surgery, and he's going to be out for 16 weeks of being able to actually throw the ball, which is right up until, I think, training camp for a team. So this is extremely crazy news out of nowhere, because this was a day before the Lynch and the 49er team go into the combine, where a lot of trades, at least the makeup of a trade, are kind of laid out and settled. And all of a sudden, a curveball, to use a baseball analogy, a curveball gets thrown into the storyline, and Jimmy Garoppolo is going to be out for 4 months and have shoulder surgery. So clearly this has to affect his trade value, I would think. But Mav, do you feel like there still is a trade value for Jimmy Garoppolo now when you add a quarterback that's already kind of had injury issues, already kind of like on the older edge of his career versus the younger edge of his career, questionable, at least I guess playing style, and now coming off of a shoulder injury? Can the 49ers even still trade Jimmy?
I'm wondering, I've seen a lot on Twitter if this is a way Jimmy Garoppolo can kind of angle a way to be released, and then he would then get to pick the next team he plays for. Is this shoulder injury could help him in doing that? Especially the timing of it is very interesting in that aspect. But I think as long as he's able to be traded, there will be a market, just because going off of the top quarterbacks available, as of now, I know we'll touch on it a little later. As of now, I'm assuming Kyler Murray is not available. I'm assuming Aaron Rodgers is staying in Green Bay. And I'm assuming if Tom Brady was traded, it would be to the Niners. So he would be with Tampa Bay or nowhere anyways. And then it leaves the uncertainty of Deshaun Watson. And I'm assuming Russell Wilson won't be traded. So that leaves Jimmy Garoppolo, possibly Baker Mayfield, and Teddy Bridgewater as like those top quarterbacks available. And I still find Jimmy Garoppolo as one of the two most desirable in that situation. Not saying a first-round pick this year by any means, but a second-round pick this year. If teams get desperate, a first-round pick next year, you never know, because Carson Wentz went for a first-round pick. And people can go on that last or that possible MVP season. Carson Wentz had that one season, but his most recent years, he was not worth a first-round pick. But the market dictates what it is. This is like what I took freshman year in econ, like supply demand. There's not a lot of quarterbacks. If you can end up getting that late first round pick, mid second round pick, that would be something I think the Niners would pull the trigger on right away. But this shoulder injury does kind of put a wrench in that. And so it might be where they don't get to get a draft pick this year, and they kind of have to hold on to him for a couple months and then make that move 2 months into the offseason, which would obviously hurt the free agency plan. But it's something they could do if they think they would be able to get a 1 or a 2 in 2023.
Got you. So 1 and 2 we're talking high numbers. If you think that, there's going to be a really, really high market for Jimmy. I don't know if everybody agrees with you, Mav. Kim saying Jimmy doesn't have any trade value in my eyes. The 49ers need the cap room now. So I'm assuming he's saying just cut him. James Coombs, this is where I hate to say it can ruin the trade value he had. Raphael 562, Niners trade Jimmy with Greenlaw as a package. That's interesting. I think that would make it maybe a little more appealing. Niner by nature, one of my favorite handles. No one wants Jimmy. So I think here's the thing, Mav. I think people were kind of reaching for a 1 or 2 from the 40 for a Jimmy trade. That was kind of like the high end that people were expecting. This was pre-surgery. Now that surgery is there, you got to say it's got to affect a little bit, because now you're talking about a team that most likely won't be able to pass a physical before training camp. So now if you're talking about giving up a first or second round asset, you don't know how he's going to respond to the surgery. You don't know how he's going to be after the surgery. You know what I mean? He was already what most of us considered a limited armed quarterback without the surgery. Now, maybe the surgery could make him stronger. Maybe, it'll open up some range of motion and help him, work out a little bit harder and get that arm a little bit stronger. But it can do the opposite. And maybe he's not the same quarterback ever again. You got to think that I mean, at least for me, I have to assume that teams are going to be more reluctant now to give up higher assets because you really don't know what you're going to get, and it's already a guy who's been up and down now on top of a surgery that obviously even if it's a quote unquote minor surgery, any surgery is a major surgery, especially when it's to your throwing arm. I find it hard to believe that teams are going to be jumping the gun to now make a trade for a guy like Jimmy, or at least offer that first or second that they may have offered if they thought Jimmy was healthy, now knowing that he's not going to be.
Yeah, I totally hear what you're saying and agree with what you're saying. My thing is just what I keep going back on is the best quarterback available. And as of right now, I think you got to assume the Pro Bowlers of Watson, Wilson, Rodgers, and Brady are unavailable to most teams, or would take a king's ransom that most teams aren't willing to pay. Let's just say it's somewhere there. So then it comes with the guys available, and there is the injury concern with Garoppolo, and then what E. Kim said, where they need the cap space. So I could totally see a situation where the Niners value the cap space now more than they would a better draft pick down the line, and they move them right away for a fourth just to get that cap space now, rather than wait and possibly get a second. I understand that thought process, and I think that would be a smart avenue to go down if that's what they need to do to get that cap space. But with all the teams that need quarterbacks, if Tampa Bay needs a quarterback, I don't think he fits that offense, but they need a quarterback. Washington needs a quarterback. Pittsburgh needs a quarterback. We don't know what Cleveland's going to do with Baker Mayfield. I've seen reports that the Vikings are trying to move on from Kirk Cousins. There's a lot of moving pieces in this.
Denver.
Yeah, Denver, obviously. And it's Garoppolo, Baker, Cam Newton, Fitzpatrick. Like those are the type of guys you're going with. So it kind of goes down to fit. And I mean, it depends on how much you trust that shoulder, how much you're willing to go for it. I think the shoulder injury does impact it a little, but if it ends up being a buy or a seller's market where the Niners are the leading or have the best commodity, then that could increase it. First this year, I think is definitely out of the question. I think it would be a first 2023 or a second in 2023 is what I'm thinking it would be.
Damian Lee, thank you for joining in, my guy. I'm assuming trade Jimmy to Pitt for a fourth rounder. We traded Alex Smith for a third round pick and Kendall Hunter. Yeah, I mean, I think if you can get a third or a fourth round, I think that's the highest that you're going to get at this point. Because I think, Mav, you're underestimating the other quarterbacks that are out there, because a guy like Carson Wentz might be available. If you're saying Kirk Cousins is available, and there's guys that you could get that maybe if you're, because with Jimmy, off of surgery Jimmy, you got to say that's taking a flyer. Well, if you're going to take a flyer on a quarterback, there's guys like Mitch Trubisky that's out there, Marcus Mariota that's out there. These are guys that are younger, healthier, that you don't have to give up assets for. So if you're going to take a flyer on a quarterback, why take a flyer when you have to give up assets versus not give up assets? And that's where I think it changes for me, because now all of a sudden I feel the team had to build themselves up to believe that Jimmy Garoppolo was their guy. And now this kind of like bursts any bubble that was there. If there was any bubble, right? Now it's completely, all the air has to be let out, because it's like, okay, this guy that we were already on the fence about, now all of a sudden isn't going to even be able to throw till training camp. And then that's when we're going to find out if he's even going to be the player that we want him to be. So maybe conditional stuff like you're talking about, where you give up like a fourth and maybe a conditional pick that could turn into something higher based off of playing and how far they get. But yeah, I just don't believe there's much of a market anymore. I think I think if anything, the 49ers are going to sell really, really low. But conspiracy theory me kind of gets a sense that, Jimmy's team is just like, look, we were very classy this whole time with the 49ers, but you don't get any more from me. Like, this is no longer I'm looking for what's best for you, 49ers. I'm 100% looking for what's best for me. And somebody was talking, I saw this on Twitter, and I'm not exactly sure about the details, but if Jimmy Garoppolo gets cut and doesn't pass a physical, he gets a $7.5 million injury exception. And then this is the part that I'm not sure about. If he signs with another team, I don't know if the 49ers get that money back or if that gets added on to whatever contract he signs with the team. So say, for example, he gets 7.5 million. Now, if he even signs a contract for like 15 million for 1 year, he's pretty close to what he was going to make under contract if he got traded. But now he gets to be with a team that he actually wants to play for, that he actually has a chance to start with. And maybe that's the play that he's trying to say. He's like, hey, even if I don't make the whole full 25 or 27 million that I was offered or that I was guaranteed if I got traded, even if I get maybe 22 million with the trade exception and a contract signing, maybe that's enough if it means I could start or play for a team that I could sign a long-term contract with. I don't know if he keeps that 7.5 million if he signs with another team, but if he does, it's kind of brilliant on Jimmy's part.
Yeah, going off what you're saying, where it's like he was classy through the whole thing, but now he has to go after me, and that's what athletes should do. NFL contracts aren't guaranteed. Like, he needs to take care of his next paycheck, take care of his next location he'll be playing in, and so I don't really have a problem in what he's been doing this offseason, even if the surgery wasn't 100% necessary. Get your body right for 2022, where you need to win a starting quarterback job. And
yeah,
he doesn't care, or he shouldn't care what he's traded for if he's traded or if he's released.
Right.
That shouldn't matter to him that, he only went for a 5th round pick or whatever. Like, he has to get his body right. So yeah, get the surgery. That's all good on my part.
Absolutely. James Coombs posed a question for us. If 49ers can't trade him to plans, do you think they restructure and extend to try to raise value again, or just post June 1st cut? What do you think, man?
Just going off of, I think, what they've done in the past and how it's going to be, I think they would just cut him if they can't find a trade partner. But I strongly doubt that they aren't able to find a trade partner. I think if he was to be released, it would be because they're doing Jimmy a solid and saying, we'll let you pick where you want to go. And that's happened in the past a lot of times in the NFL, where you could get a 6 or a 7 for the guy, but you release him, let him pick where he wants to go. And that's just the way it works. And players and coaches are all on the same page on that front. And so I could see them releasing him if there ends up not being a trade market, like you were touching on. If that shoulder surgery does not work out well, or he does not rebound from it, and they're still holding on to him, I would think they would just release him. I don't think they would restructure him and keep him around for another year.
Yeah, I agree with you too. I think the value for the 49ers is cap room 1, and whatever they get back in trade assets is 2. So if the trade assets aren't there, I still think they need that cap room, so they just cut them. I hope that the 49ers don't want to go through this whole, is Jimmy starting, is Trey starting again for another season. I know you don't, Mav. I know I don't. But I doubt the 49ers really care what we think. But I'm sure the fan base would like just like a clean split so that we could go into trade season and just be behind him 100% versus going back and forth about who the starter should be.